What's going on, guys? Beni Hana here. Gonna do a little breakdown of Abra Cadabra, the A1 on the XXL Grooves VA with Poolhaus Beni. Devin started this project. He, I don't know, Devin, you tell the story.
Yeah, I always go through, or not always, but I love to go through old songs and save things on Spotify and Instagram and YouTube of things I might want to sample. And then I listen back to it when I'm like driving around in the car or cleaning my room or whatever it is. And so I was actually Christmas shopping and listening back through my playlist, and this garage song from the late 90s came through, and I immediately sent it to Sean and Ben in this group chat that we have. I was like, hey, this vocal is awesome, we have to do something with it. Kept shopping with the rest of my day. A couple of days later, Ben followed up and was like, did you do anything with that track? And I actually just like pulled it around and started a project with it, and had like the foundation of the song and sort of the base layer of what this ended up being, and sent him over the stems for it. And then back when we were back in New York a couple weeks later, we got into his 1-bedroom apartment and
not studio apartment,
and kind of inked out the rest of what this looks like. So I think it'd be a great way to like start with this breakdown by zoning in on the vocal, because I feel like that is where really the foundation of the song started, and everything else was kind of built around it.
So yeah, when Devin sent it over, it essentially had a little more than what we have in the track here. But we kind of chopped up what he sent us, and the vocal is this really cool sample from like the late 90s that just has this crazy energy and kind of sucks you in. So for the main vocal part, we took one of like the more repetitive pieces, and we're using that here in kind of like a build up here to the breakdown. And then there's some other elements that we kind of chopped up and used throughout.
The first time I listened to it, it gave me such like super stylin' by Groove Armada vibes, and I feel like you can kind of see some of that throughout the rest of the track. Just like this like dance hall inspired kind of shout that runs through it. It's just like it's a party vocal. It feels like something you've heard before. It feels like the 90s. Just all around A1.
All together, the vocal kind of sounds like this. You've got this cool thing building up. And then there's this second element to it.
Just the vocal gave us such like a great foundation to work on, and then from there we just tried to build things around it that felt authentic to like the vibe of the song. So I think if you pull up a couple different things, we have some actual like other vocal samples that we pulled. One's just called Bomba Clot. Because again, this song, like the vocal gave us such like dance hall vibes that we ended up pulling. It's just this guy saying like boom, and it plays throughout, sort of in the background, but gives that texture. And then the next thing that I had originally pulled together for this, and again like had sort of that Groove Armada vibe, was I wanted there to be like a horn and like a stab that happens in the breakdown, and something that felt so obviously sampled. And then we ended up kind of trying to trash it up a bit and make it sound a little more like it had been run through a sampling machine or something.
Yeah, so if you can like see here, Devin sent me this horn sample and then this rocky stab thing, and we're like really just boosting the sample. Like we're just kind of squashing it with the saturator, 100%, boosting it 14 decibels, and then even taking out like another 2.5 decibels in the high end. So really just cranking this thing, and it adds that kind of vintage 90s feel to the whole track.
Yeah.
We can't forget the Abra Cadabra part
Good,
that sneakily comes in.
So yeah, the last kind of vocal element here is this. I think this is the Abra Cadabra sample right here. Yeah. So the last piece of this vocal, and where we got the name of the tune, is this kind of sneaky little delayed out Abra Cadabra vocal. But yeah, super fun, dancey vibe, and it just kind of fits in with that kind of like dance hall theme that Devin was talking about earlier.
Yeah, the vocal's not super in your face. It's just a texture kind of throughout.
Yeah, I think the other thing that like really drew me into this track when Devin sent it over was like the groove he had. So he essentially sent, and I chopped this up a bit when I got it and added a few layers and stuff and the claps, etc. But this kind of like UKG, just kind of squashed drum groove that just keeps the track moving.
Yeah, I think I took it from a sample pack. There was one that I was really loving at the time, like the Mega Dance add-on grooves or something like that. I forget the exact name, but if you dig in, they have a bunch of different loops across a bunch of different BPMs, and a lot of these ones that people back in the day used to sample straight from for their tracks, and so I'm a big like layerer, and so I always take one loop and have it be sort of the base of things, and then I'll try to layer some of my own sounds over top. And then one of the things that I love so much about Ben's music is it always has a groove. It's always like got a bit more syncopation and swing than anything I could ever put together. And so I just love what he did with it, of like chopping a little bit of it up, moving some transients around, and then Ben, I think you put some of your own 606 stuff over it, right?
Yeah. So like what Devin sent was a lot of like 8 and 16 bar loops, but if you can see, what you can see here is just kind of took a lot of those, at the kind of like where I felt the groove was the strongest, and kind of just looped those, but still keeping some of those longer loops to give it a little, bit of that organic feel. So like if we solo a couple of these, it feels really repetitive and not as random, but then when you're like clicking back into the whole group, it feels really cohesive and cool, and it has that 90s kind of classic sound, that sampled vibe, we're going for.
Yeah.
Once
you've got the vocal laid out here and like your drum groove, it's really a matter of fact of like figuring out what do you want the bass line to be. At least that was sort of my next step when I'm putting this together. And the bass line's interesting here because it started as a respace, and I had ended up having another layer over top of it, which Ben, probably for the best, took out of it. But as you can hear in the beginning, it starts with a Reese, and then I don't want to put words in Sean and Ben's mouth here, but we were doing a lot of like switching it up halfway through, and I feel like that was something Sean had been super into, is like different bass line for the drop, and a different, or for the first drop and for the second drop. So I don't know if I'm gonna solo that.
Yeah, so like what Devin sent over was this super fat Reese bass, this garage bass here, garage, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it, garage. The bumbleclap bass, and I just kind of threw a little chorus on it, put the sub in mono, and then a little EQing and side chaining, and it's this super fat Reese thing that you kind of hear just like sweltering in the background, giving it that massive atmosphere. But as soon as we heard that kind of like paired with the drums and this crazy dancehall vocal, I was just like, I gotta jump on this and do something with it. And then from there, we got into my apartment and just kind of like started chopping it up, right? Had all these amazing elements, lots of cool atmosphere, and tons of potential.
This whole first breakdown, I think, is pretty simple. There's like a drone somewhere around here.
It's this atmosphere.
Oh.
It's just the pad.
Yeah. No, it's called Atmosphere, but it's really just a...
It's really just a pad.
No, this is actually it's a, like, you can go on Splice and look up like drone or atmosphere, and then it'll have these long vocals that are like 20 seconds long, and if you just take like a 1 second snippet of it
and extend the loop and then like I like take out everything that could be considered a low and then add like some type of sidechain or trance gate on it, it gives it this really cool kind of like pulsing drone effect that you can't hear, but when everything drops out, it sort of fills up some space that at least like when I'm listening to music, just like having that frequency so faintly filled up just fills up the room for me a little bit and like keeps my ear intrigued. I feel like everyone hears music differently, but for me, like, I need something at all times. And so I end up putting a lot of these atmospheres in.
Yeah. And then, what I did essentially is I just took the same atmosphere or that drone, and then as soon as we get into the breakdown, I just kind of chopped it up into something a little groovier and that had a little more movement, just to pick up the energy, because there's no kick in the breakdown. It needs something to keep the track driving. So when you're on the dance floor, it's this really like subtle thing, but it's there and you can definitely feel it. But yeah, so in the drop there's this kind of deep swell or like growl, and that comes from this 80s synth that I try to sneak in like every song. It just sounds so cool, like warm and analog, and we just got really lucky with this this preset. I don't even know what it's called, high res pad, but it just gives this really like cool atmospheric texture that kind of just makes you feel like you're floating through outer space or something.
Groovy spaceship.
You're on a groovy spaceship, exactly. Sitting in your space living room. So yeah, I love this synth. I think it has like the best filter out of anything out there, and you can see like we're just pumping the resonance here, and that's where you get that really cool swelling or swell or whatever you want to call it.
I feel like so many people do that in like rocky stuff nowadays too. Is just like hike up the resonance, and it gives such like a cool, unique movement to it. We've got a couple other things here, like a M1. How could you not pay a little homage back in the day, unless you had an M1 synth? But I actually think that is a one-shot sample of an M1 that is pulled from the pack and then pitched around.
Yeah, so we just, like, a lot of the stuff you'll see in here is samples that we've either just, pulled, which also just kind of pays homage to the style of music we're really emulating here. It's like these really cool samples sonically, but we are making them unique and futuristic with the processing here, right? So here we've got this really cool stab, right? and we've just added a simple delay, an EQ, and then a pretty heavy chorus on it. And then back to this M1 organ. It's just a classic house sound. So a little side chain, some more processing here, another delay, some imaging that we did, just to give it some stereo image and let it kind of sit in the mix a bit and not really crowd the mix. But when you kind of piece this all together, it sounds kind of cool, cohesive, and every element is kind of sticking together and glued together in this kind of cool way. So when you've got all these different layers and then coming in with this heavy Reese bass that's kind of panned everywhere with the chorus, and then this organ bass coming in, giving it some width and some EQing and getting it out of the way of that vocal is going to kind of let the track, the drums, that heavy kick breathe.
One of the things that is so great about working on tracks with Ben is we work in Logic for all of our music, and Ben works in Ableton. And so whenever we're collaborating on something, we can't just share like the project file directly with him. We have to bounce every single stem, and then he's got to put all those stems in his project. And if I want to work on them again, I either have to get in the same room as him, or he has to send it back to us so that we can then put the stems back into our DAW. And while it sounds like a cumbersome process, I feel like it really truly lets you like collaborate, because you don't have a lot of control over the samples, so you're forced, if you want to work on the song, to put your own instruments in, to chop up the other person's instruments, to take things out that you might not necessarily have originally like put in the song, or process their instruments in a different way that they might have not originally realized or wanted to do. And you get a really cool outcome that I think is a good combination of both people's styles. Not a lot of people have Logic, so like it's tough for me to ever like collaborate in the same project as people, but I can imagine like you either would go one way, to the one side and mess up everything, or feel like you're sitting in a made track and not really want to do much at all.
Yeah, I think for me too, like the real benefit of just getting stems that like Devin has already put his own unique processing on and his own unique touch on is it already sounds really cool to me coming in. So it already gives me this like one, this template of what to work with, but two, a really clear idea of what I want to do in terms of processing, in terms of arrangement, and it gives me kind of less flexibility to mess around there. So you end up working a lot faster and getting to your finished product much more efficiently. Like if I'm working on a solo project, I tend to get bogged down in sound design and just trying to make everything sound perfect when it already does. Like yeah, I think it's great.
If we keep going through it, we have these little like short little breakouts, which I think for us, at least like when we're in Ben's apartment working on things, like the little breakout is kind of like you take a break, the groove sets out, but you bring a new synth in here.
Yeah.
And so
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, one of the things we introduced is we put in this new layer here, which is I've got a software version of a JD8000, which is a analog synth that a lot of people use for trance music, and it's an analog synth that a lot of people use for trance music. And unfortunately, I don't have the full real one, but I got pretty darn close. And Ben then chopped up these stabs a bit more to fit with some of the groove that he had already put together with the other sample.
Yeah. So like we introduced this in a cool way. So in the second half of the track, or the second drop, we actually introduce a whole different bass sound. It's essentially the same groove, but instead of, you know, using that kind of UKG respace, we move more towards this like classic housey, you know, plucky bass sound. So here in this quick little break, what we're doing is just kind of teasing that, and then using that as an opportunity to bring in this, you know, big JD 8000 synth as well. And then we're back to the Reese for a second before we break it down.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
The second drop, Ben and
We can't forget
Sean,
the loon.
the
The loon.
Ben and Sean did something really interesting. They wanted to change it up completely, and so Ben talked about it, like teasing that a little bit, and then we take the Reese out altogether in this second drop here, and it becomes just this sort of trancey house stab.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you can't
Rewired.
forget the loon. So we try to like, or at least I try to sneak this sample into like pretty much everything. I don't even know what to say about this. I just think it's hilarious.
Do you know the origin of that sample? Isn't
No.
it a jungle, like a UK jungle, UKG?
I have no idea. That's really funny if it is.
Yeah, you find it in a lot of like prog, trancey, and like garage tracks.
Yeah.
Especially out of the UK. It's a sample that's been rinsed a ton, but it was just a fun little ear candy to slide in there.
It's now a Beni Hana producer tag.
But yeah, toss a little intro on it, a little outro, and that's Abra Cadabra.